Last full round at Albacete saw a fight this time between the Castrol Suzuki number 3 and the Moto 38 Yamaha, at least for the first couple of relays, as third place GMT 94 had a loose footrest and would take time to close back up on the leaders. All through the night, the GMT 94 Yamaha was trying to close the gap to the second place Moto 38 machine, and by the morning Moto 38 were down to 2 riders and still trying to keep the charging GMT 94 Yamaha behind them. But once GMT 94 got past, there was nothing the Moto 38 team could do to take the place back. The Castrol Suzuki were by now 2 laps in the lead and held on to first place until the end. The 5th round of the World Motorcycle Endurance Championship, and we're at Motorpark Oschersleben in Germany as the headline race of the German Speed Week. It's a week-long festival of bike racing, including the Aprilia Mille Challenge, the Yamaha R6 Cup, the Sidecar Euro Cup and the European Super Mono Championship, along with a host of other races. The Oschersleben Motor Park is situated about 160 kilometres from Berlin in the former East Germany, and the Speed Week is the highlight of the bike racing year, with thousands of fans descending on the track for both the racing and the partying. With huge numbers of fans making the trip this year, the entertainment was non-stop, with stunt riders, dragsters and pillion rides around the track on race machines as just some of the on-track activities. Oschersleben also has a shorter track that was running super motard races throughout the week. Off-track, there were plenty of party tents and live bands, along with the more traditional beer and German sausage. When the Castrol Suzuki team entered the World Endurance Championship, it was expected by many that they would run away with the series. But the multiple Le Mans winners have found that it's not so easy in world competition. Minor problems have had a major impact on their championship hopes, and they trailed the GMT 94 team by 14 points. GMT had consistently set fastest laps in racing, but had to translate that into consistent wins. And Oschersleben was the biggest prize of all, with 50 points going to the winners. After suffering multiple technical problems, last year's world champions Phase 1 were hoping that everything was finally ready for them to be competitive. Moto 38 Yamaha had so far been third everywhere and were third in the championship. They wanted to do better than that here. And Honda Austria were fourth in their first year of competition on the brand new 1000cc Fireblade. They were just 5 points behind Moto 38 and hoping to break the French domination of the championship. Among the other challengers were the combined Kawasaki teams of Bolliger and Diablo 666 on their new for 2004 ZX-10R Kawasaki's. And World Endurance wouldn't be the same without the prototype entries. At Oschersleben we had entries from KTM with their Paris-Dakar LC8, the Harley-Davidson-owned Buell XB12R and local manufacturer MZ with their twin-cylinder 1000S machine, all hoping for glory alongside the cream of long-distance racing teams. Qualifying was held under a mixture of conditions, with overnight rain making the track treacherous for some the following morning. One victim being Kevin Falker of the Phase 1 junior team, the number 6 Shell Academy, who fell and broke his ankle, being replaced on the bike by Eric Mizera. The WRT Honda Austria team were very strong in qualifying. Rider Robert Ulm grinding away his foot pegs to beat Moto 38 for third on the grid.
I'm happy with my lap time. It's not sure was possible the pole position, but I had yesterday many mistakes and today we had a little problem with the setup. For this I'm happy with third position.
GMT 94 were fastest in first qualifying, but going even faster in the second session wasn't enough to secure the pole.
I think the race will be very difficult for us because it's the second race in this year, about 24 hours. And we are not sure about the bike for complete the race, but we are very happy about the setting of the bike and the tire and everything. I think we just need to start and make run by run and finish.
But once again, it was the Castrol Suzuki number 3 that took pole position, but this time it wasn't by much, a mere 1400ths of a second.
Yeah, it was difficult for me here because it's the first time I don't know the track. So I'm confident now because it's difficult to make a good lap. For the race I'm confident because it will be better for practice.
Behind the top three, it's Moto 38 in fourth, followed by the Bolliger team and Yamaha Austria, with both the British Phase 1 teams qualifying in the top 10. As the teams lined up on the grid, there was one notable exception. The KTM LC8 had failed to qualify. Nonetheless, it was a packed field for the start, with 43 machines from 8 different manufacturers, with between 600 and 1000cc twin-cylinder, triple and 4-cylinder configurations. The Works Benelli team were all looking forward to their first ever 24-hour race, qualifying their ever-improving triple in 16th place. For the riders, though, the usual nerves had set in and all they wanted to do was start. It wasn't thought that the weather would be a factor at Oschersleben this year. 2 years ago, the race was red flagged because of a violent thunderstorm directly over the track. But for 2004, the race will be warm and dry. 3 p.m. on a Saturday afternoon, and the 2004 Oschersleben 24-hour race was underway. There's always somebody who makes a mess of the start, and this time it was the turn of Karl Truchsess on the WRT Honda Austria number 5, who struggled to get the bike to start, but finally got away at the back of the pack with a lot of work to do. At the front, both Castrol Suzuki and GMT 94 had got away well, followed by the Bolliger number 8 Kawasaki, the Swedish Fagershore L Suzuki, Bridgestone Bikers number 47, Moto 38, Phase 1 number 1 just in front of their number 6 junior team, with the Bergman and Sorna number 17 Suzuki and the Diablo 666 Kawasaki in 9th and 10th. But the leading three were already starting to stretch their legs. The expected battle between the number 3 and the number 94 had been joined by the Swiss Bolliger number 8 Kawasaki, and it looked like a three-way battle was underway. Bolliger had fielded their fastest rider for the start, but Roman Stamm was out to earn his pay. Fastest in qualifying, Vincent Philippe was on the Castrol Suzuki and would soon set the fastest lap early in the race, but it would still take time to pass Sebastian Gimbert, the lead-out rider for GMT 94 Yamaha. Through the Shell S's for the first time, and already there was a significant gap to the Fagershore L Suzuki in fourth. Swedish rider Lars Karlbach's qualifying times were over 3 seconds a lap slower than the leading riders, and he couldn't hope to keep up. Across the start-finish line for the first time, and the gap to fourth was already massive. Vincent Philippe on the number 3 Suzuki was already looking for a way past the GMT 94 Yamaha, but Stamm on the Kawasaki was still right in the hunt. Questions were already being raised in pit lane about the number 94 Yamaha, as the machine did not seem to be handling as well as it should. Sebastian Gimbert was notably slower through the corners and often would be running wide on the exit. He was still managing to stay in front, but it was only a matter of time before the Castrol Suzuki would sweep into the lead. It was only the first half hour, but already there were casualties. The number 15 Inedrum Suzuki had crashed and came in needing repairs. But Phase 1's race had come to a halt after only 8 minutes. Rider Dean Ellison was stuck on the outside of the track, about as far away from the pits as you can get, with a mystery electrical problem. It was only after the leaders had completed 33 laps that Phase 1 finally made it back to the pit box. Ellison couldn't come across the infield to pit lane and had to push the bike for almost an entire lap. The problem didn't take long to fix, but the team rejoined the race, many laps behind, and in last place.
Well, it was definitely an electrical fault, and the fuel light was showing for the whole session. And then as it went on, it just got slower. Knew there was a fault, warned the team. Before I knew it, it just went dead.
The Castrol Suzuki team had found over the course of the season that they could stay out on track up to 5 laps longer per session than their main rivals. And once again, they were the last into the pits for fuel and tyres. But every time they pitted, the GMT 94 Yamaha would retake the lead. By lap 53, it was a straight battle for the top two. The Bolliger Kawasaki had dropped back to fourth, and Moto 38 Yamaha was now in third place, but 38 seconds behind the leaders, and the gap was growing. Things weren't going well for the number 2 Works Benelli. After the first hour, they'd fallen to 33rd place and were 4 laps down. And after 57 laps, the triple was into the pit box and the shutters were hastily closed. Rider Paolo Tessari was devastated.
I'm very disappointed because I want to finish this race, but it's not possible. I wait for 6 months for this race. 24 hours is fantastic, but this is the race.
The leaderboard showed the positions, but not the gap that was starting to build between the two top teams and the rest of the field. The Honda Austria number 5 had fought up through the pack and was now in the top 10 with the Bergman and Zoller Suzuki number 17 and the number 47 Bridgestone Bikers team just behind the number 6 Shell Academy Suzuki, with Yamaha Austria now threatening the Bolliger Kawasaki for 4th place. For the first time this season, the Castrol Suzuki was in a desperate fight on the track. The GMT 94 Yamaha had snatched the fastest lap of the race so far and were now spending a longer time at the front than the number 3 Suzuki. Suzuki were gambling on their ability to stay out on track longer to break the Yamaha challenge. Manager Dominique Mayond of the Castrol Suzuki team said, "We can do more laps than GMT, but in reality the gap between us is only around 5 seconds. At this moment we just have to push. The gap is too small to call. We've got to wait for around about 5 or 6 hours to see if we can build a gap over GMT 94.
D'ici 3, 4, 5 heures, on va déjà avoir une vision plus précise de la course."
Just after 7 in the evening and problems for the WRT Honda Austria number 5. The engine's gearbox had broken and bits of metal had got into the engine, and the Honda was the second bike to retire from the race. Sunset and the teams were facing some of the most difficult racing of the year. The Oschersleben track is tight and twisty, and unlike Albacete, doesn't have track lighting. Concentration for both riders and pit crew is vital. The Diablo Kawasaki number 666 had got up to 6th place before a crash dropped them down to 34th, and Moto 38's 3rd place had been lost when they broke a throttle cable. Walter Tortoroglio had crashed the Phase 1 number 1 Yamaha and had gone to the medical centre after banging his head. Team manager Russell Benny had no choice but to retire the 2003 world champions from the race. We'd also lost another permanent team, the Italian Makamoto number 14 Yamaha, with a mechanical failure. After 7 hours of racing, the GMT 94 Yamaha had once again set the fastest lap, but were only leading the race from Castrol Suzuki by under 3 seconds. The gap between the top two couldn't be closer, and the strain of constantly racing at superbike pace during the night was now starting to show.
The biggest problem is the traffic. It's impossible to pass all the guys, and you must wait. You must find new lane to pass. It's very difficult, yes.
10:30 in the evening and the grandstands are still crowded. Every few minutes something else happens and the pit lane explodes into a hive of activity. This time it's yet another permanent team. The Swiss Bolliger number 8 Kawasaki have been holding 4th place, 5 laps in front of their closest competitor, when rider Marcel Kallenberger brought it into the pits with an ominous rattle. The Kawasaki's generator was broken and they were out.
I go out after the pit stop. We change the brakes in the pit stop, and then I go out 2 laps later. I feel no power outside of the corner on the back straight. No power, and then the engine broken. And then I take the clutch and roll home.
It was now approaching midnight, and still the race had 15 hours to run. As usual at world endurance events, the party was just getting started off the track, and at Oschersleben there was action everywhere you looked. Super motard races were being held throughout the night at the smaller track next to the paddock area. And with typical Teutonic efficiency, the race organisers have put on a spectacular event. And even if you were away from the track, you could always keep updated on the race action with the local radio station carrying live commentary throughout the event. The party zones were packed. There were live bands, go-go dancers, and all the usual excitement you'd expect from a German festival. And of course, there was always the German beer and the food. Back at the track, and the crowd was still there and watching as disaster unfolded for Castrol Suzuki. midnight and the number 3 Suzuki's engine had failed spectacularly, spreading oil all over the track and bringing down another 6 bikes in its wake. The Bridgestone Bikers number 47 had fought through to 4th position in the race, but was brought down on the oil and would lose 9 laps. The pit lane was a hornet's nest of activity as teams struggled to fix their broken machines and get back into the race. Most of them, including the Tech Parts Motorsport Yamaha R1, will be able to rejoin. The Buell XB12R was also one of the bikes pushed into pit lane. They rejoined the race only to break down by 4 in the morning, but the Castrol Suzuki team's fight for the championship was now over. Dominique Mayon said, yes, it's right, it's a catastrophe for this race, but it's only a small mechanical problem. We'll look at the engine to see why it broke and to find the cause of the problem, because this hasn't happened with the Suzuki in 10 years, and we'll just be ready for the next race.
Et puis on va remédier et faire ce qu'il faut pour les courses à venir, pour les prochaines courses et puis pour l'année prochaine aussi. On va penser déjà à l'année prochaine.
The pit crews that could took some much-needed rest between pit stops, but for some the rest was much longer. We had lost the Reich Endurance Suzuki number 25 as one of the victims of the Castrol Suzuki's crash, along with the 750 PS team's 750cc Suzuki. The Lohmann Kawasaki Z1000 had crashed, but was back in the race. But the Burger King Lust MV Agusta, the number 11, was just one of the bikes that would retire with mechanical problems. GMT 94 now led the race by 6 laps over Yamaha Austria number 7, with Moto 38 in third, a further 7 laps down. The top 3, all Yamahas. Good news for GMT fans, but not so great for Kawasaki. Sunrise and still another 9 hours of racing to go. GMT 94 were extending their lead over second place as the Yamaha Austria team struggled with brake disc problems. All the nighttime carnage had appeared to miss the local number 111 OB Breckley team, and their parallel twin-cylinder MZ1000S sounded brand new and was comfortable in 15th place in its first ever endurance race. Jet Suzuki number 4 was in 4th, with Bridgestone Bikers number 47 in 5th, and Kawasaki still had a bike in the top 10, the number 21 Kawasaki Germany ZX-10R in 9th place. Moto 38 were holding third, but minor problems have prevented them from challenging for second place.
Again, for the second time we broke this rotor wire, so we had to change it again, and I broke it just in the straight end, so I have to finish all the entire lap. So we had to repair. We lost many laps again, so now to catch back to the 7 it's impossible.
But it seemed that the number 7 Yamaha Austria machine in second place had problems of its own. The bike was overheating, and hasty discussion followed between the managers of both the leading Yamaha teams about how to deal with the problem. With GMT 94 now leading by 11 laps, manager Christoph Guillot could afford to help another Yamaha team.
I think it's a little hole anywhere in the house or near the exhaust. Maybe it's damage to the heat. Don't know.
The number 7 was brought in after around 20 minutes of discussion on how to handle the problem, and after a quick inspection was found to be almost completely empty of coolant. For Yamaha Austria, it was a convenient time to pit, as rider James Hutchins had crashed the Diablo 666 Kawasaki on his own oil with less than 6 hours to go, and the pace car was out while the track was cleaned up. As the team got ready to restart, they'd have to wait for the pace car to come past before rejoining the race. They'd lost another 4 laps, but were still 11 laps ahead of Moto 38, who were in third place. The Diablo 666 Kawasaki team had at one time been as high as 6th in the race, but finally their bid for glory had ended. Rider Russell Baker explains what happened.
He was going down the straight, we got 2/3 of the way down the straight, and he just lost power. And the bike's, his feet started sliding on the foot peg, so obviously it sprayed some oil. We looked behind him, he said it's plumes of smoke. Next thing he knew, I think he was on his arse. So that's it for us.
But the pace car had to come out again. The Shell Academy number 6 Suzuki had developed an oil leak and was leaving oil all around the track. Rider Marco Rotland eventually crashing, but being able to get the bike back to the pits.
I don't know, just oil coming out and it's flying on rear tire and it's very slippy, I don't know. There's something broken or I don't know.
The morning hours hadn't been kind to other teams. At one point lying in 5th, the EMPP number 84 Suzuki was also out of the race, and the retirement total was now up to 14 teams. By the end of the race, the total of non-finishers will be up to 18 out of 43 starters. But for GMT 94, the race was a dream. By their last pit stop, they were 18 laps ahead of their nearest competition, the Yamaha Austria number 7, who were themselves 6 laps ahead of Moto 38 Yamaha in third place. Moto 38 had had their problems, mainly the fact that they'd broken 2 throttle cables during the race, and both at inconvenient locations on the track, which had cost them many laps, and their run of 3rd places was still not at an end. The Yamaha Austria number 7 overheating problems were solved with a quick refill and a couple of buckets of water on the engine, and with no further problems, they couldn't be caught for 2nd place. The only problem for GMT94 was a tyre spinning on the rim in the very first relay, but since then the team had no problems, had set the fastest lap twice and finally beaten the Castrol Suzuki number 3 on the track. And at the checkered flag, the French GMT94 Yamaha team had not only won the race, the double points awarded for a full 24-hour race meant that they couldn't be beaten in the points race and were now the new World Endurance Champions for 2004. After coming so close in many years, the title that had eluded them while they were running a Suzuki GSX R1000 have finally been won with the Yamaha R1. The race result in Yamaha take the top 3 positions, the top 2 on Pirellis. Kawasaki had just made the top 10 and even the MZ1000 had a good first race, finishing in 17th place. Moto 38 almost have a mortgage on 3rd spot on the podium. They've been there so many times. The 2004 title might have gone, but the points are very tight between 2nd and 3rd.
The big problem is the championship for us. We really want to finish in the 3rd place, maybe 2nd place, to keep in the top 3. So now it will be very hard because the 3rd is just a little back from us, and the number 7 is just 3 points, I think, in advantage to us. So it will be very difficult in Vallelunga to make the difference again.
If Yamaha Austria had not had early brake disc problems and later their overheating problem, they'd have been much closer to the leaders, but they were happy in 2nd.
Fantastic, because this year started so good with 2nd place in Assen, but only in practice, and then the engine has broke down. It was our own fault, it was not the fault of Yamaha, and then we are not so lucky this year. And now this is very good because it's the most important race and best thing we can do.
It's been a dream for Christophe Guillot for many years and has finally come true, not only winning the World Endurance Championship but also beating the much fancied Castrol Suzuki team. But it was a hard race.
For the mentally it was so hard. Physically, yes, physically was so easy, but for the mind was really difficult. And I think my physiotherapist was so good because they helped me a lot and make me massage on the head for the stress. And nothing to say, we did the best and we win the championship, nothing to say.
So the 2004 World Endurance Championship has been decided in favour of GMT94 and Yamaha. But the final race of the season is still to come. With only 6 points separating 2nd and 4th, the final race at Vallelunga in Italy would see a major battle for Castrol Suzuki to break the dominance of Yamaha. But that's all to come at Vallelunga in October. For now, GMT94 can relax in the knowledge they're the new World Endurance Champions.